In my personal opinion, Palestinians don't deserve to have the land that they have. I've been studying this extensively for months, and despite the religion that I follow, nonetheless, I looked at both sides, and before I felt bad for Palestine, I felt bad for the Palestinian people until I looked more and more into the evidence for Israel's innocence in all of this. And looking at the what was it, the 12 or 1300, I think it's like around 1,200 people that died that were killed during October 7th. The what was it, 200 plus hostages that were taken. It might have been even more than that. But well, that's unlikely. But the all the people that were burned alive and shot and stabbed to death. The brutality of those killings, and then the people taken hostage. Pretty much all of them being placed in dark tunnels for over 500 days. Some of them, probably half of them, haven't even survived, haven't made it this long. And I studied extensively the brutality of the Israelis and the brutality of Hamas in Palestine. Because I want to be specific, the Palestinian people in general are heavily indoctrinated, heavily influenced by these Islam terrorist groups. But as we all know, Islam is a terrorist religion, and it's not really a religion. I see it sort of as a terrorist organization that has around 2 billion members. Most people are peaceful. Yes, most Palestinians are peaceful. But the influence of Hamas, I think, has grown on the Palestinians after them losing a lot of children. But what made me side with Israel is seeing what Israel did to try to try to move the people out of Gaza before they started their bombing attacks, their missile attacks. Um, and yeah, I do think Israel has been a bit harsh on quite a lot of Palestinian citizens. I've seen a lot of them come out of prisons, and I've seen a lot of videos and images of children in Palestine, being injured by whether it be gunfire, or most of it being explosions, rockets and missiles coming out of Israel. And yeah, I do think that is pretty sad, but a lot of families decided to stay. A lot of parents decided to keep themselves and their kids in Gaza, and Israel warned them beforehand. Before the strikes occurred, Israel warned the people to get out. They warned the people, we're going to strike here. They I believe they announced it on speakers, and they sent people messages. They sent down notes, with, I believe, drones or balloons, something like that. I think it was drones, if I'm correct. And so, Israel tried to warn the people, but they decided to stay, and in doing so, they got blown up, many of them. Um, and pretty much, Hamas has converted the Palestinian people, into wannabe freedom fighters, wannabe liberators of Israel. A lot of the Palestinian kids, from what I've seen, have been like very heavily indoctrinated into the Hamas, Islam terrorist organization ideology. You see a lot of footage of very young people, a lot of young people throwing rocks, tossing rocks into Israel, and a lot. It's kind of funny. This is a little off topic from what I wanted to discuss, but you see like a lot of liberals and stuff throughout the world. A lot of like dyed hair, cringy rainbow people, to put it lightly, yelling like "Free Palestine" from the river to the sea, Hamas are the good guys and all that blah blah blah. But I don't think they understand that they would get stoned to death by Palestinians if they went into Gaza, for instance. The Palestinian people are a lot of them very animalistic. I do think, yeah, there are probably a lot of them that are very decent people, sure, but a lot of them have been pretty much fully converted to Hamas because of what they've seen and gone through with the bombings and all that. So yeah, I don't agree with Israel striking Hamas with missiles. I think that's caused a lot of civilian casualties, but I don't know. They should have moved out of the area before the strikes occurred. But besides that, um, I do think it is disgusting. Hamas playing all this music and all these huge crowds of people, like cheering, when these coffins came out that were being delivered back to the Israeli people, the dead people being delivered back to the Israelis. I do think that Hamas is sort of cheerful about the dead Jewish people. Like, if you really understand Hamas well, and a lot of Palestinians are always like, the only good Jew is a dead one, and we need to free Palestine from the river to the sea. A lot of them believe in that ideology. And also, I almost forgot to mention this, but going back to the 40s, when like Israel first became a nation in like 1948. If I'm correct, I believe, I'm not going to pull up the article, but I'm very sure that from what I saw, um, like right within a few, I think it was within a few months of Israel becoming a nation, there were a lot of Palestinians that basically just rioted. They protested and rioted, and they murdered a bunch of Jewish people. I think they murdered something like 30. I think it was like 37 Jewish people they murdered, or 67. It might have been more than that, but I think that, I mean, heck, even if it was like a dozen or so, like, still that's pretty bad. I mean, even one person being killed is bad, but a lot of people were killed, and I think many more were injured because of some riot the Palestinians caused. Because even back then they were Muslim, and they were really displaced nomadic people, and the Palestinians, if I'm correct, they were pretty much created. They were this group of people being moved around by the British or some European nation, if I'm correct, and I'm still doing my research, though. There's a lot of research to look over. So I don't know everything. I'm still doing my research. But I know they were moved around by some European country for, I don't know, like several decades, until they placed those Palestinians right next to Israel. Um, and so the Palestinians have always been, they've always been violent and aggressive, many of them. Maybe not most of them, but still a good majority of them have always been, violent and animalistic. And it's made the rest of them, it's made like some of the very innocent, peaceful Palestinians, get prosecuted, get you know, bashed in the process by Israelis or whatever, like really orthodox people in Israel, and it's kind of turned them into wannabe Hamas members. And yeah, so since all those bombings, I think it's converted a lot of peaceful people into wannabe Hamas members in Palestine. So that's kind of why I don't agree with the all the bombing strikes, because it killed a lot of children. But they they decided to stay. And what makes things worse, what makes things much worse, is you look at all the people, all the Palestinians coming back into Palestine. From what I saw in articles, and I don't know how true they are, but I think it was something like 30 or 40,000 Palestinians decided that were displaced decided to go back into Palestine, specifically I think around Gaza. So a lot of them, came back to their homes that were rubble, and they pretty much just reoccupied the area where all the bombs hit and stuff. And so the people, they're refusing to leave. A lot of them, most of them, a lot of them probably don't have anywhere else to go. In reality, I don't know if Egypt is accepting them. I don't know how true that is, but a lot of them, I'd assume, probably don't want to leave Palestine. They see it as their homeland, and so they're refusing to leave, and I can imagine the conflict only getting worse, much worse. I can imagine those 40,000 people, 30 or 40,000 people that returned. A lot of them will probably end up joining Hamas at some point in the next few years or decades. Who knows how long this will go on for, but I really do believe that most of the Palestinians within the next few years will be fully converted into joining Hamas, and will sneak into Israel and plot Israel's destruction, with the help of Iran or Egypt. And there's also Egypt as well. That's a whole nother topic to discuss when it comes to Egypt and maybe Syria and Iran. And then perhaps possibly plotting attacks on Israel. But time will tell. We'll see what happens with that. But these Hamas members, they don't show their faces. It's kind of, I don't know, they seem kind of cowardly. They don't show their faces. They rape and torture and murder a bunch of Israeli people on October 7th. And then they set up these dumb stages and stuff with their Islamic terrorist propaganda. Because as we all know, most people on terrorist watch lists and most terrorists that have been convicted, I think throughout the world, are Islamic. Islam promotes it secretly. People that are scholars, that are very well versed on the Quran can say, oh, it promotes peace. Oh, Islam is not or the Quran doesn't promote terrorism and violence. But I don't know, if you really look into it, it does. It's just that some people misinterpret the rules in the Quran, and they actually go against what the Quran says because they misinterpret, to put it specifically, when the slavery and the mass murder and the rape is allowed to begin. They misinterpret that part of the Quran, and the takeover of the world and the killing of the Jews and Christians. They misinterpret that, but nonetheless, the Quran does say that the Christians, like me, and the Jews in Israel are the enemy of Allah, their fake God, and their Quran promotes. Their Quran does promote violence and murder, and so Hamas pretty much is Islam, and Islam is kind of in a way Hamas. The two are very intertwined. Hamas is probably the second most extreme form of Islam, the most extreme sect or group based off of Islam. It's second to ISIS. ISIS would be the most like pro Islam group, the most extreme, obviously, but probably the most Quran following book, even though some things they follow aren't correct based off of the rules of the Quran. But it does say that not to make peace with your enemies, the Jews and Christians. So they get that right. And with pretty much all of the Palestinian people being Islamic, and being indoctrinated at birth into Islam, and them therefore not having a choice to leave Islam, and many of them, probably truly fully believing in Islam and the Quran, it's not likely that that they'll um, ever be able to come together with the Jewish people. It's not like they'll ever be able to live in peace together. They did at a time, believe it or not, I think around 40 years ago. Many of them did get along. Many Palestinians did live with Jewish people, and they got along. There wasn't much rioting or violence, or suspicion between one another. But at some point, it broke down. I think it was because of Hassam. There was some man who was kind of like the father of Hamas. I think that started all the conflict back around 30 something years ago when it just started to get bad. So it is possible for Palestinians and Israelis to get along, but that's kind of been tainted permanently at this point. It's been ruined because of Hamas, pretty much solely because of Hamas. Yeah, but I do think, though, I will say again, Israel probably shouldn't have used high explosives on a highly populated area that has a lot of kids. That probably wasn't a very smart idea. They probably should have used ground troops, but I understand they would have more casualties in their military if they did that. But a lot less children would be dead, realistically speaking. A lot less dead Palestinian kids. But besides that, I don't know. I think if you look back at the Old Testament of the Bible, and even the New Testament, though I haven't done too much reading in the Bible, the Old or New Testament, which the Jewish people, if you didn't know, they believe in strictly the Old Testament of the Bible. And if I'm correct, from what it says in there, and from historical documents that exist, Israel, like the parts of Israel that Palestinians occupy, is technically belonging to it belongs to the Israelis, and it has for thousands of years, if I'm correct. But the Jewish people have been displaced so many times that they've never really been able to occupy any of that land for more than, I think, like 85 years or something like that. 88, 87 years. But yeah, there's one area in Israel that is, let me look it up. I don't want the video to be too much longer, but Israel cities. There's like the gold something, I forget what it's called. There's like some area that's occupied by the Palestinians. I forget what it's called, but I know that it's near. Oh, here it is. I think it's the West Bank. That's it. Yeah. So a lot of the West Bank, if I'm correct, I could be wrong, but I believe a lot of the West Bank, some of Lebanon, and of course Gaza itself, and some of the Sinai Peninsula actually belongs to did belong to the ancient Israeli people. If you're going off of biblical scripture, I'm pretty sure that just about all of the Sinai Peninsula belong to Israel, or at least a good portion here, as well as obviously Palestine and all of West Bank, including the Dead Sea, I think, and the Sea of Galilee, if I'm correct. So yeah. I do think that Israel, the unpopular opinion, but I do think that Israel has a right to take back ownership of the land that was, in a way, I see it as being stolen from them by the Palestinians. I don't think the Palestinians really deserve. I don't think they have a right to have Palestine as their home. I think they would be better off living in the Sinai Peninsula or living in Egypt. There's a lot of Muslims in Egypt. They would do very swell in Egypt because Egypt has been taken over by Muslims, in parentheses terrorists, in my opinion. And yeah, you could call me extremist, and I guess I kind of am to a small degree because I really don't like Islam. But that's just because I understand it well. I understand the nature of Islam. But anyway, like, comment, subscribe, and check out my other videos. And definitely comment in the comment section down below. Tell me what you think about Hamas and Palestine. And also tell me what you think about Israel. Like just this little area here. It's a nice looking beach. That's a really nice looking beach. Israel's a really nice looking area, especially if you look at Eilat. I was looking at Eilat quite a bit because I was studying the Mount Sinai, this Sinai Peninsula. It's a really nice area. Look, that's crazy. Yeah, Egypt's in a really beautiful place, amazing place, or Israel, sorry. Egypt doesn't look that nice in my opinion, but yeah, Israel is really nice. A lot of people, that have never seen Israel probably think it's just like sand and, big rocky mountains, but it's not quite like that. It's a lot nicer than that. But yeah, a lot of it is sand. It is out in the Middle East, but it's they've made it into a really nice area. So yeah, but anyway, see you in the next video. I'm gonna end it here.